Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Today we are going to be working on the Superhawk again. This is a 98 Superhawk. The last video I did on this bike, I showed you all the metal that was in the oil pan. So today we're going to start the process of dropping the motor on it. And now the engine on this bike holds this is part of the structure of the bike. So it means the rear swing arm's got to come off. The exhaust, of course, has to come off, and a lot of pretty much everything's got to come off of this bike. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to see if we can get the engine out of it and get everything braced up so we don't drop anything, and get all the parts bagged up and boxed up so we can have them all ready for when the bike is to go back together. This I'm going to have to do it that way because my garage is small and I don't have a lot of place to have this all spread out. So we're probably going to try to see the best we can do and have the most, things not lost and take up as less room as possible. So join with me. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, one thing I want to show you is I am going to be going by this Honda service manual that I have. And I don't know if you can see this in the picture, but that's everything that needs to come off to get this engine out. So we're going to start this process, and I will try to show you as much as I can. I'm not going to sit there and have the video running the whole time while I'm doing this, because that would be hours and hours of editing plus a lot of boring stuff. But I'll try to fill you in on what I do as I do it and kind of show you what I've done. So let's get to it. All right, the first thing we're going to do is remove the exhaust. So here's how I use these manuals. These manuals jump around a lot. So like to remove the exhaust, you go from section 7, which is the engine section, to 2. And I know how to remove exhaust, but I'm just kind of showing you this for an example. And then it may jump over to section 5, to section 4. So what I'd like to do is take these little sticky tabs and just tab the pages where it has you jump around to. That helps you when you're putting it back together to not have to jump around so much and hunt pages. You can just kind of go to that sticky tab because you know that was something you did. And that's how you can get to the area a little faster than flipping through pages with your hands all greasy. So we're going to take the exhaust off first. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you on this bike, it's got the Jardine exhaust on them, which sound amazing, but there's a problem with one. This one right here on the left side is broken at the weld. So I wanted to take that off anyhow because I'm going to try my hand at welding it. Not the best welder in the world, but see if we can make it work. But so that was another reason that I was going to take this exhaust off anyhow. So it'll be something we can do while it's off. So let's get. All right, guys. So we've got the exhaust off. So now we're going to take off the radiators. We're going to, I believe I already drained them, but I'm going to make sure because I had having some stuff drip down here on the table. That's why I've got this pet pad down here to just soak some of it up. So in taking the exhaust off, I did break one bolt that was on the band for the right side exhaust. That thing was just stuck on there and it did break even though I heated it and sprayed it down. But the exhaust manifolds here, all of those came off no problem. That was with a 10 millimeter socket to take those off. And I think it was a 12 on the exhaust clamps, but those may be different because they are aftermarket on this bike. All right, so next we're going to get ready to drain the radiators. All right, so we've got both radiators off, 8 millimeter bolts there that take them out. I'm going to put the bolts back where they came out of so we don't have to bag them and tag them and all that fun stuff. Try to keep as many bolts in place as I can. I'll get that in a minute. But so you got that part of it done. So now we're going to check the manual, see what the next part is, and see if we can get that out of the way. All right. Next thing I did was take the tank off. I'd already had the tank all disconnected. I just had to take out the one rear bolt here, and you've got two bolts up front. Take those out, and you can take your tank off, disconnect everything. So the next thing we're going to do is pull the carburetor. Now in the manual, it says you can pull this carburetor by leaving the air box and everything attached. So we're going to try that. And that'll be just a few less things to have laying around. I've already had this carburetor off before and cleaned it. Um, and I've probably already released the video of that. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can take this off in one unit. You'll have to get in here and get the bands loosened for the rear carburetor. And then there's a hole right here you can go through to get to the front bands. And then we'll see if we can get that to come up. We have one connector right here. We have to disconnect that. And I know it has some coolant lines. Yeah, there's one down here. The coolant lines, well, it's not really coolant lines. They call it heater lines to heat the carburetor. So you have those to remove also. So we'll have to see how we can work all those out and see if it's easy to take everything off. And then I guess once you get the carburetor up, lift it up, then you can disconnect the accelerator cables. So we're going to give this a shot, trying to do it with leaving it all attached to the airbox. See what happens. Carbs off. I did pull them all off in one unit with the airbox still attached. Had to take the lid off the airbox, but my suggestion is take the airbox off. It was too much of a pain to get down here and get everything disconnected, these cables and everything. It would have been just easier to take the airbox off. So my suggestion to you, take the airbox off. So here's where we're at right now. Got the carbs off, radiators off, and so that's where I'm at. And we're going to see what the next steps are. But I'll probably be out here another day. So we'll have more to come. All right, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the thermostat housing. We're going to remove all these hoses, the sensor wire here, and the ground wire. So we're going to remove all those off the thermostat housing. Okay, guys, after you cuss and fight and scrape your fingers and bust your knuckles and all that fun stuff on getting that thermostat housing out of there because of these hoses being such a pain, it's out. So next we're going to move to removing the fairing stays, and the oil cooler will come off next. So we're going to get ready to get that out of the way and have some more fun. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I hate dealing with hoses. It seems like they're the most difficult thing to take off on a motorcycle. These freaking coolant hoses, but Honda likes to stick them in a place where you can't get anything on them and a grip. So, yeah, buy one of those fancy tools that pushes the lines off. I'm definitely going to invest in one because this was no fun. All right, so moving on. All right, the next thing I did was I removed the ground cable here. Removed it from down here. I just put the bolt back in so I wouldn't lose it. I just went ahead and disconnected all the connectors up here. So we have all those disconnected. And let's see, we'll have to see what is next, but I did remove the oil cooler as well. Oil cooler's gone. So we'll see what's up next. Okay, on the left-hand side of the motor over here, you have the pulse generator that you need to connect also. And I'm not sure if it recorded a second ago, but I disconnected the ground cable. It's on the other side of this. I think it's a speed sensor here in the back. Could be wrong. But then I disconnected all these cables up here as well. The ground cable, pulse generator cable. So I think the starter is what they say to pull next. So let's get on that. Yeah, the next thing is the starter to remove. I already had this loose because I had taken it off earlier. Take this one bolt out here. Here's the starter wire or nut off there, and then these two bolts, and then you just pull your starter out. Kind of lift it out and then pull it out. All right. Get that out, and you just have to wiggle it and turn it. Kind of seals in there, so there you go, and it comes out. All right, so now I get the starter out of the way. I'm gonna put these two bolts back in here so I don't lose them. And then the next thing we have to do is around here on the other side is we take out the slave cylinder and this cover here that covers the sprocket and the chain front sprocket. So we'll remove that next. All right, so remove the cover, remove the slave cylinder. Slave cylinder's right here. It looks like this might have been changed at one time. It has a different type of gasket on that slave cylinder. And it looks like some old fluid had leaked out on this at one time and somebody didn't clean it off and they replaced it. So we'll get that off. I think the gear shifter and everything comes off next. If not, I'll make the correction. All right, the next thing we have to do is we're going to remove the front sprocket here. We're going to remove the chain, loosen up the rear wheel and the adjusters. We'll do the adjusters and things first and then do the the front chain sprocket and get ready to get that out of the way. And then we'll do the brake reservoir, rear brake reservoir over here. And I believe we have to take the whole everything here off. So we're going to work on that next and see if we can get this thing a little closer to being pulled. Man, there's a lot of stuff you got to remove on this bike to get that motor out. All right, the next step. I supported the bike with this ladder, jack stand kind of contraption. Had to get the rear wheel off the ground and it's supported on there. So now what we're going to do is remove these caps over here on the swing arm. Remove both caps. We're going to get ready to take that bolt out. There's a few other things we got to take off over here on this side as well. One thing I forgot to mention was removing the rear brake reservoir here, and it has a little reusable zip tie in here. You can just release that, pull the brake light switch out right here, runs up through to this connector up here on the top. So you remove that. I went ahead and removed this cable here that ran down in the back. I think that's the speed sensor. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check that, but I went ahead and removed it. Put the bolt back for the reservoir here, and so now we'll get ready to remove those caps and to remove the swing arm. All right, guys, so I went ahead and removed the nut here. That was a what was that, a 25 millimeter, I believe it was. 27 millimeter. So I removed that nut and I pushed this back a little bit just to get the foot peg off. And I went ahead and took this bolt out here also that holds the bottom part of the foot peg. That's an Allen. I think it's 5, I believe, on the Allen. Yeah, 5 on the Allen. So now we're going to remove the shock link bolt. Now, the book's not real clear on which one to remove. Not sure if it's wanting us to remove this one here or the one back here. So I got to kind of look into that a little more. I think it's this one here because all that is held on here holding the motor up. So before you take this bolt all the way out, you're supposed to remove the shock link bolt. So we're going to look into that, see which one it is, and I'll show you which one that is before going and removing anything else. And I did take the chain off out of the way since the foot peg was out of the way now. So have that freed up. All right, I took the 2 long mounting bolts out. the longer one goes in the front of the kickstand, and then this other one goes up here at the top part of the kickstand mount, the shorter one. So I've got the nut off of this mounting bolt here that holds this shock bracket, and it just, yeah, I gotta see how it comes out of there, because I think that's all that's kind of holding. Well, there's how it comes out right there. So just kind of pull on it a little bit. There's a dowel pin there, that's why. So pull on it a little bit and you'll get that piece out. I'm gonna make sure this kickstand switch is unbolted up or disconnected. I think it is. I just have to work the wires through. So that's where we're at now. We've got the shock assembly out of the way. So we're going to move on to the next step. Let's see what that is. All right, as you can see, we have separation. We got the rear section off the motor and off the bike. So that's out of the way. So now we're going to have to custom make some tools to be able to pull this motor out of the frame. Doesn't on this side, but over here on the left hand side of the bike, it's got these special little bolts there to come out of the frame, and one down here as well. So we're gonna have to make a couple tools to see if we can cut some old sockets where they can fit in there and hold those bolts, so we can back the bolts out of the other side, and we should about be ready to have this motor drop. I just put this little stand underneath of it to support the motor, so all the weight is not back here on my ladder that's holding the rear end of the bike up. So that's where we're at. We're going to see if we can get this motor out of here real soon. So let's see if we can make some tools. All right, I guess we're about ready to drop this motor. I actually didn't need to make those special bolts to take this out. I might need them, or special sockets. I might need them to put them in when we tighten it down. But I popped all. All right, we actually have the motor out. It's sitting on the little stand down here. We've got a few of the hoses that ran back here to the back of the motor. I'm kind of just doing all this for my reference as well, to kind of just see where things are at and were. I did have this one hose down here that was pinching on the overflow bottle here, and that was kind of holding things up, but once I moved it out of the way, everything dropped right down. So now I've got to figure out how to get this motor out. I think what I'm going to do is lower my lift slowly and see if it will just hold the rear of the bike up. The cradle will hold the front of the bike, lift it up so I can slide the motor right out. I wanted to actually use this table when I was tearing the motor out, so I'd have a long space to lay everything. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is just kind of try to lower this down, get the motor out. I'll get the bike itself out probably in my storage, and then we'll start tearing this motor apart and get ready for that. So anxious to see what was going on with this bike and seeing what was locking it up. So we're gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. All right, here we go. The motor is out of the frame and sitting on the table here. We're going to start tearing it down, but that'll probably be in the next video. So I'm probably just going to have this video as just taking the motor out of the frame off the bike, and we'll have the next one on when we start to tear this thing down to try to find out what the problem was. So thanks for watching. There'll be more to come. I'm going to have the teardown video also here soon. And so hopefully you like this. Please like, subscribe, helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.